All right.
Yeah.
Hey, can I shift topics on us? 'Cause I feel like we've
I don't know where you want to shift it to.
wandered around. I was going to ask if either of you have an opinion on the Book of Boba Fett.
I haven't seen it.
I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I'm not allowed to watch
All
the
right.
third one without Amanda because we watched
Okay.
the first two together.
I
I
too have only seen the first two, but if Bill
Oh.
hasn't seen it, I don't think
It
this is
was-
the
I've
first
got no
discussion.
emotional investment in Boba Fett. Like,
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah, neither do I.
so,
No,
so I'm just gonna let it run and then I'll watch it all at once.
that's what my parents
Like,
are gonna
the
do.
internet doesn't seem to be spewing out spoilers on this one the way they have with every other show lately, so I don't really feel bad about it.
Well,
Or if they are, I don't understand them.
yeah, okay. So here
Is this the one where that ass driving a car is from? Because that's the only thing I know.
here is my here's my non-spoiler spoiler for the first 3 episodes. Have I seen all three? I may have only seen two. I'm sorry. It's for the first 2 episodes. The reason that there are no spoilers is because there's not much to spoil,
Okay.
Yeah.
at least so far.
I mean,
It's fine. That's what I'll say.
I've never felt like Boba Fett was a deep character.
Yeah. If
So
you-
I'm not really worried about it.
If you were thinking to yourself that what you really have been missing in life is spending more time, A, with Boba Fett, and B, on Tatooine, this is the show for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you do not feel that either of those things are missing from your life, you should probably do something
Yeah.
else.
I mean, having spent many years going to conventions where people went as Mandalorians before the show,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, you're just here to be cool looking, right? Because, like, there's no greater thing to this. And they're like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of books. I'm like, no one has read those.
Yeah. What that person has.
So, I mean,
And-
those people might have, but I
and-
haven't. So I have no
and-
investment whatsoever.
Here's the thing. As that person walks around that con, wearing that costume, having read those books, the only place on the entire globe where the interaction cross section is such that they will find someone else who has read that book is that con. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's fine. I'm not knocking
I mean, I
anybody's
understand it.
fandom.
I'm the
If you're
same way
into
with
it,
so many things that I'm into. I don't expect everyone to have seen those things, but I have no investment in Boba Fett. That's like, I'm going to watch this when it comes out every Wednesday.
I'm gonna pivot to a new topic, but it goes from here,
Okay.
which is one of the things we did over the holidays that was a ton of fun for us. Is we managed to get a Lego Advent calendar,
Yeah.
and it happened to be the Star Wars Lego Mandalorian Advent calendar.
Yeah.
And so all the little things that you built were tangentially related to the Mandalorian. They were mostly kind of generic Star Wars stuff overall,
Sure.
but I mean, some of them were pretty cool. And the last like couple that you opened up were the Mandalorian himself
Yep.
in his armor, but with a red scarf because it's
Yep.
Christmas.
Naturally.
A figure of the child
Naturally.
Yeah.
in a little red like
Which
Christmas
is what sold
sweater.
this product. Yes.
Exactly. And the little like bassinet thing that the child goes in. So those
Yeah.
were like the last three that you opened up. And it was a ton of fun. We had a blast having Lego time. You know,
Cool.
we didn't do it every day because then only one of us would be building something. So we usually waited like an integer multiple of 2 days
Yeah.
so that each of us would be able to open up doors and do something. But we had a blast with it. It was a ton of fun.
Cool.
If you're looking for just a fun intro, I mean, they do a really good job at taking like these janky pieces that shouldn't go together in any way. And when you're done building, I mean, yeah, that is a little tiny of that ship. That's neat.
Yeah.
So it was lots of fun. So I recommend Lego Advent Calendar.
Nice.
But that rekindled our love of Lego from years ago, and so we built some larger scale Lego things over Christmas break. So
Have you been enjoying the cost of modern Legos?
they're pretty bad, yeah. But I mean, most of them seem to be geared toward how can I phrase this? People who are middle aged, with at least 2 incomes in the household, and it works just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked
But
into
anything
the,
else?
I looked into the NES thing and saw the price and went,
Yeah, that's stupidly
I
expensive.
thought it looked really cool, and then I saw how much it cost, and I'm like, I could just get out an NES.
Yeah, I did buy the Lego Space Shuttle, the one
Yeah.
that's got the Hubble that comes with it, because I'm like, how can I not? It's the Hubble. I
Right.
have to do
I
this.
feel like I have that the first time they did it.
Well, was it like the space shuttle itself is like this. It's huge. It's like this
Oh
big.
no, I have the original time they did a Lego space shuttle.
Yeah. So there's the little one that's only like yay big or
It's
no.
about
This
this
one
big,
is
and you
like
build a little satellite thing in it, and it pops out. Yeah.
yeah. This one's giant, and
Okay.
you can collapse the solar panels on the Hubble, and it will fit inside of the cargo bay
Is it
of
scratched?
the space shuttle. No.
How authentic are we talking here, Clue?
Well, it also doesn't take any images, so there's that.
Why Lego?
Lame.
But the set itself is incredibly detailed. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap. It took me a couple of days to put it together, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. So now I've got to find a nice place to display it because it's just that nice. There are, and now I'm going to pivot from this topic to another topic. Watch for it. There's this thing that Lego does now where you can submit an idea for a set, like a design for a set to the Lego website. And if enough people upvote it, they'll think about making it. And if they actually make it, the person who originally designed it gets they get a percentage of sales of that set,
nice.
which is really cool. There is a James Webb Space Telescope one. Well, there's several.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I look forward to sometime in the next couple of years when the JWST Lego set comes out, and I have to drop another like $200 on plastic bricks so that I can put them together and set them on a shelf. But that will totally happen. But folks in the chat earlier were asking, "Hey, Cluze, did you see the launch of the JWST? How do you feel about the James Webb Space Telescope?" I have spent most of my adult life knowing that the James Webb Space Telescope was coming. I liked it better when it was just called the Next Generation Space Telescope because I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I've spent the last several years, one of the courses that I teach is an observational astronomy course for our physics majors, and it's taught like every other year. And every other year when I teach it, I update the slide where I talk about the JWST, and I just cross out whatever date it was supposed to be launched, and I crossed out whatever its cost was going to be, and I fill in the new numbers.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore. I actually have to fill in the actual date and the actual cost, which were, far later and far larger than they were. But
so Cluze, what's the next telescope that you can start that slide on?
I believe it's Deep Space Nine is the telescope.
That's what I was setting you up for. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I feel like if we go next generation, then DS9, we're good. Once we get to Voyager, it gets kind of awkward.
I'm going to circle back to DS9. I've written it down here. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Just put a pin in that one.
I mean, everyone else did.
Wow.
Babylon 5 was better. I spent the last several years when it looked like James Webb was actually going to get launched at some point, like for realsies this time. I did not let myself get my hopes up at all because this thing is preposterous. There's absolutely no reason that it should actually function. There is no reason it should make it. It should break, right? So we've made it most of the way through launch so far, the 29 days of terror, as they've described it. We've made it most of the way, and so far, all of it's working. And I don't know how long we're going to be able to hold on to that. Based on the past couple of years, what's going to happen is we're going to get all the mirrors aligned because the step that they're in right now. I dropped a link in the chat earlier to a thing where you can watch in essentially real time what is the James Webb doing. We're going to get all the mirrors aligned, I'm sure. And then we're going to get to L2, Lagrange 2, and we're going to insert into orbit in Lagrange 2. And I'm going to say roughly a week after we have the first light image, which is still going to be a month. Okay, there's a lot for them to do before we get our true first light. Here's actual data from the James.
Yeah.
It's just going to get hit by a rock.
That's my expectation, yeah.
That it's just going to be going along, shower of glass everywhere.
So, like,
it's gonna be.
Speaking as someone who studied the documentary Mobile Suit Gundam, stuff goes down at Lagrange too. They really should have done their homework.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's easy for stuff to orbit there, so it's easy for stuff to collect there. So
yeah.
I have concerns, but no, look, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it works and that it has a long operating. my final exam for that observational astronomy course, because I was teaching it last semester, on my let's see, was it at the final homework or the final exam? One of the two. I had a problem for the students where they had to just, do kind of a ballpark estimation of given how long we think the life of the James Webb is going to be, and given how long an average exposure is for a telescope image, what's the cost per image for James Webb? Now, we assumed a 10-year lifespan for it, which may be right. They have enough propellant that they think they might be able to go even further than that, provided the electronics hold out. But we assumed a 10-year lifespan, and we assumed that you didn't have to take any kind of calibration images. Both of those things are lies. We assumed that there would be no downtime, also a lie.
It's a spherical cow.
And we assumed that they could run 24 hours for the full 10 years. And it came out to be about $18,000 an image, which actually isn't that bad.
That's about Getty.
Yeah. So there you go. But I want to come back to DS9 since.
Okay, wait a minute. Before we do that,
yeah,
I want to explain to people real quick what is a Lagrange point. Because
sure.
When I told this to the parents, they just looked at me and I went, so because of the way gravity works, okay, when you have multiple bodies together, all orbiting things, the way that the different gravities of the different objects affects the fabric of space-time, which is what gravity is. It's curvature in the fabric of space-time. Don't need to worry about that. There are certain points. There are, 5 of them? And then there's one on the other side, right? Yeah,
5.
So there's
yeah.
three along the axis of the Earth and the Sun. And then there are 2 more off there somewhere. Lagrange 2 is the one, if you go Sun, Earth, it's the one that's behind the Earth. So if it's looking out into space, away from the Sun, it'll never have to worry about the Earth being in the way. But there are points in space where things can orbit around nothing, essentially. It's a little more complicated than that, but it's a place where the different gravitational forces kind of balance out and things can stay there without having to constantly be burning propellant to maintain that location. Did I do good putting that into basic English clues? Because I don't want to get too technical because it's a stupid, video game stream.
Look, that's selling our audience short. I think that they're capable of understanding these sorts of things.
Everybody get your graphing calculators.
So hold on, I'm writing something down here. Put some constants in here. Why not?
Oh my. Quick, what's the Planck length?
Planck length should not enter into this.
I appreciate that Cluze is drawing a dick butt.
Hopefully.
It's going to be Uganda Knuckles. He's going to hold it up.
That's right.
He's Googling it and now he knows what it is.
Dick butt. Okay, so we've got a little diagram here. We've got the sun, of course, and we've got the Earth there. In the upper right-hand corner, as you can see, and I don't know if I got too much.
No, you're good.
Fine.
Okay. So in the upper right-hand corner, there is a thing called Newton's version of Kepler's third law. So Kepler's third law dictates how something orbits something else. Basically, how the period, that's the p in the p squared, relates to the a cubed, which is it's the semi-major axis of the orbit. But for now, just think of it as the radius of the orbit. Okay.
Wait. The what you blinked out?
The semi-major axis, think of it as the radius of the orbit. Okay. So the reason that the Earth orbits where it does and that it takes as long as it does to go around the sun is because of this equation. The 2 m's that are in there, m1 and m2, those are the mass of the Earth and the mass of the sun. Now, the mass of the sun is so much bigger than the mass of the Earth that you kind of don't care about the mass of the Earth that much in this equation, but p squared a cubed. Okay, is what we're dealing with here. So it basically tells you that if you take the Earth and you put it there, it will take 1 year sun, right? So suppose that we want to add another object, which I'm going to draw an arrow to, somewhere outside of the Earth's orbit. Well, if we're using this equation again to figure out that thing's orbital period, like how long it takes to go around the sun, it has to include the mass of everything inside of its own orbit. So it has to include both the sun and the Earth and itself for it out there. So, although we're at a further orbit with this little dot that we've added here, since we've included the mass of the Earth in its orbital calculation as well, its period to go around the sun is also exactly a year. That's what makes Lagrange points special. This Lagrange point, L2, it's the easiest one to understand. There are other Lagrange points that I don't want to go into right now, but this I think is one of the easiest to understand because you're just adding in some extra mass. So the time that it takes to go around, even though its orbit is slightly bigger, is exactly the same amount of time as the Earth's orbit. That's what makes L2 special. So it'll go around and it'll do its thing.
It's moving faster than us.
It is, but it's also going further.
Yeah.
So it works out.
But it's moving the same angular velocity as us.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so even though it's further from the sun, it still takes exactly a year to go.
Yeah.
Ta-da. Lagrange.
Bill, are you hearing clues blink out randomly in the middle of words? Okay.
Really?
Yeah, it's weirding me out. Check all your connections real quick.
Yeah, let me just check the
All
Wi-Fi's.
of them. Everyone.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi seems fine here, is what I'm going to say. Let me just go kill some tabs. Maybe
No, I meant
one of
like
these
your
is
physical connection, like to your...
No, there's literally just a USB cable running here, buddy. It's...
Oh, okay.
It kind of reminds me of when the AutoGate does dumb stuff on Discord.
Oh, I'll bet you I know what it is. Yeah, I bet it's Discord because I think I haven't used Discord in a while, and I think it's adjusting its settings for voice.
I've had to adjust Discord settings about once a month since we started using it.
Okay,
I've never had to adjust my Discord setting once.
Let me just lower the input sensitivity. Okay, how's this? Testing. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
It's completely random, it seems. So we'll just keep talking.
At random intervals.
Yeah.
We'll tell you if it keeps happening.
All right.
And Chewie, you don't have to adjust your Discord settings because everyone hears what you hear. Like, you're going through way less levels of nonsense than us giving stuff to you and then it getting passed on.
So, Squee, I had a topic I wanted to return to.
DS9?
This topic it'll take a little bit of setup, but it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it, okay? Do you trust me?
No, but go ahead.
I don't trust me either.
I'm in with you guys.
I want to talk to you about bit depth for a minute. Can we talk about bit depth?
Are you selling me on a Bitcoin thing? Because I'm not buying it.
No.
Is this an NFT thing? Because I will kick you from this call.
Nor am I selling you on NFTs. I have it down here as a thing to discuss or mock, but we're not there yet.
Okay. I'm just making sure that you didn't get brought in by all this stuff in the midst of your madness.
Yeah, no, certainly not. So let's talk about bit depth. So the monitor that you're watching right now has a certain bit depth to its color, right? So a standard RGB monitor has, let's see now, is it usually 8 bits of red, 8 bits of green, and 8 bits of blue, typically? So you have 256 different levels of red, 256 different levels of green, 256 different levels of blue, and we mix those to create the
what our
myriad
hex
of colors
codes are based on,
we're seeing. Yeah, exactly. It's standard hex codes, right? So the cameras that we use for astronomy have a much higher bit depth than that. They in fact have a much higher bit depth than you can display on a standard monitor. They're typically 16 bits worth of grayscale. So there's 16 or 64,000 different levels of just gray, right? It's not even the colors. So there's a larger dynamic range there. The blackest black that you see to the brightest white that you see is a much wider range than your monitor can display. So in order to look at the files that come from astronomical CCDs, you need some sort of an image viewer that lets you scale that in some meaningful way. And that scaling could be linear, could be logarithmic, could be exponential, however you want to do it. But you're just changing the scaling, right? So whether you're looking at the dark stuff or the bright stuff or something in between or stretching it out so you see the whole thing. The original program to view those files, and those kinds of files are called FITS files, FTIS, which stands for Flexible Image Transport System. The viewers to view those.
Some FITS well, I used to have some FITS files from back in the day, from one of my astronomy classes.
Awesome. So yeah, Chewie knows what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
The original Fitz viewer that they had for this thing was called SAO Image, and it was developed
Yeah.
at the Harvard Smithsonian Astrophysics group. So SAO Image. They then made a newer version of that. They updated it after like a couple of decades, and they made SAO Image the next generation.
Oh no.
I think you see where I'm going with this.
Oh no.
The current version of that software, which I describe as current, even though it was written in like the early 2000s, is SAO Image DS9. And so DS9 is the standard image viewer for this sort of a thing.
Of course.
So we are back to DS9. Thank you for letting me just check that one off my list.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's one of those things that it was a joke. Like somebody made the joke once, and then people were so committed to the joke that they just took it forward.
That
And
is
so,
what Star Trek fans do. It's
yes.
why when you watch practically any movie, someone's license plate is NCC 1701. Almost guaranteed. It's what they do.
Huh.
It
It's
is.
what nerds do.
It is. If you'd like, we could talk about NFTs, but there's not much to
First, I have
say.
to address something for Al. The first version of SAO was okay for a little bit, then it got really, really bad, and then the second version was okay but also bad, and then the third version expanded into being the fourth version, and oh my god, is it long? It's not worth the journey. Nerds are terrible. Carry on.
Oh, you're making a Sword Art Online joke, aren't you?
I mean, I wasn't going to until the chat did, but then I had
Okay.
to respond to it.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I watched all of 1 and 2 of Sword Art Online
Yeah,
after I'd had my wisdom teeth out when I was in my early 40s, which I don't
meds help.
recommend waiting that long. And I was medicated all to hell.
Yeah,
And I barely remember either 1 or 2 of
sure.
Sword Art Online. I think I enjoyed it. I don't know,
I will
but
clarify. I like Sword Art Online.
sure.
It's not good. I'm fully aware it's not good. I know that. I still enjoy watching it, and then I cringe and I cover my eyes about once a season when you're reminded that the guy who writes this stuff is working through his fetish list.
Oh,
It's abundantly clear that he is.
this
Um,
explains a lot.
but like, aside from that, like if you can cut out the rotting part of the fruit, a lot of the rest of the fruit can be good. Um, and that's the problem with Sword Art Online. There's a lot of stuff that I like about it. The abridged version is superior, but you get one episode every like year. So like years
Sure.
generous, maybe every 2 years. Though we did just get a new one like 2 days ago, so I'm pretty happy. So hey, that's cool. But yeah. Yeah, as for NFTs, no, just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, the answer is
Don't.
just no.
Yeah.
Like
No.
seriously,
Not
no.
even once.
No.
I appreciate the fact that NFTs are like collecting pogs, but in a way that destroys everything.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
even
they
look
are.
like pogs.
They
That
took
stupid
the
monkey thing looks like a pog.
they took the idea of being just a horrible waste of money for a waste of money's sake, and they decided to just kick it up a notch. And the only way to do that was to make it also actively destructive to the
Yes.
environment. So
It's
yeah,
a Captain Planet villain plot.
it really is.
Like all of it is a very lazy Captain Planet villain plot. But like in a world where tech bros get to be influencers, they're gonna push the Ponzi scheme all the way down because they need other people to buy in to justify their own mistakes.
Yeah. I have yet to see a justification for NFTs, period. I can't find a justification that also factors in how destructive they are in terms of energy use. Right?
Right.
Like even if the energy use wasn't, even if that wasn't a problem at all, I have yet to see a compelling case for NFTs.
Yeah.
The
Well, it's to make money. That's literally its only purpose. Is for those people
Right.
to make more money by scamming other
Yeah.
people that are like them.
like if you're looking for an intrinsic value to it, which is a deep, deep dive. But my understanding is that there's something with the technology in there somewhere, based on the ramblings of people on the internet, that might make it useful someday in the future for like ticket verification at events because it's more reliable than QR codes for making something more unique. But the way that it's being used is largely telling everyone on the internet that you own that JPEG that I can also download and save and set as my background picture.
Yeah.
So like, and there are better ways to do that one corner case function that are nowhere near as destructive, should that be what you want to do.
Sure.
So like, it's stupid.
I also love that like the whole point of all of this, the underlying technology is all that it's decentralized and nobody controls it. And then somebody's monkeys get stolen and they complain that someone who runs everything should fix that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blatant hypocrisy.
And
to
they
all of
don't
it, but
see the disconnect.
no.
Yeah.
Well, they can't. Like, they're invested, literally. Like, they can't ever acknowledge the mistake they've made. All they can do is sell it on other people until they get out. And a lot of them aren't even trying to get out because you have to admit you were an idiot, and that's hard.
Look, if you want proof that that's not going to happen, just go to the grocery store. Just go to the grocery store and just start counting people who are not wearing masks. Just go right ahead. They would have to admit that, you know, maybe they were wrong and should maybe not do that. Like, seriously, like what the actual hell? I find going into any store these days is just so infuriating. Absolutely infuriating.
Although I will say one thing that I found really funny was how after years of circle jerking over the idea that they found Bitcoin to be a thing that is like separated from every nation. Well, when one of the top 5 nations for it is now at the brink of collapse, wow, did Bitcoin take a hit? Like, yeah, everything about normal money applies to this too, only you're spread out over more unstable countries. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish that people would be more overt about the fact that the only reason Bitcoin exists is money laundering and for making illegal purchases.
Yeah.
And, like, you could do that with cash.
Yeah.
We've already got the technology for these things. You can do all of the illegal transactions you want using existing stuff that isn't Bitcoin. Also, tangent. If we've been in a coin shortage for 3 years, can we just retire pennies?
Oh, God, can we please?
Like, we don't need them. Their only purpose right now is to get smushed in a museum for 51 cents.
Correct.
To look like a train or something.
Yes, I have several of those around here someplace. Smushed pennies from
we don't need pennies anymore. We can stop.
I keep waiting on that to happen, and it hasn't.
Like, when you're in crazy coin shortage time and everyone's like exact change or cards only, like, get rid of pennies. Just stop. This is stupid. We're not going to miss them.
Nope.
By the way, speaking of the coin shortage, I apologize for that. I started a swear jar.
Yeah. Yeah.
You started like in early 2020.
Yeah.
It just got out of hand from there.
Yeah, that was my bad.
I keep a pile of yen over here just in case I want to remember what yen look like. And a single yen piece is worth less than a penny. And like, this is physical matter that is worth even less than a penny that Japan keeps giving you, but no one's taking them. You don't ever fish through your yen and use them to pay for something in Japan. It's not happening. They just are giving us yen and hoping, I guess, tourists like me take away the problem.
Yep, pretty much.
But they won't let me in anymore, so it doesn't matter.
But by the way, Bogard, I'm just going to take I'm going to take this out of context. I realize that you're responding to the penny discussion, but there are too many old people that are too stubborn to change for that to happen. Print that on a frickin' t-shirt, because that is just all of it.
Look.
Right?
If I can be, like, dark for a second.
Please.
There are less old people now than there were before. Things are changing.
This is
that
true.
Is dark.
But I fear it. I fear.
Fearing is valid.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the plus side, for all of like the dystopian fears, I'm not afraid of runaway AI.
Yeah, that's fair.
I thought as a child, like, oh no, computers are going to be super smart and they're going to destroy us someday. And every time I've interacted with any form of AI, I'm like, you're not getting there, buddy. You can't do it. My smart speaker has been here for several years and it still can't understand what I'm saying most of the time. And I've coded 6 variations of the same phrase at it. I'm not worried about that.
Speaking of fears, can I talk about something I'm afraid of personally?
Is it spiders?
No, actually, spiders don't bother me that much. It's snakes that are the problem. Spiders, I can deal with.
Oh, see,
Solid snakes or liquid snakes?
I'm the other way around.
Any snakes, any of them.
Plasma snake.
Is that a thing?
Wouldn't it be terrifying if it was?
No, I meant like in Metal Gear Solid. Is there such a thing as a plasma snake?
I have no
know
idea.
Solid and
I've
Liquid
never
Snake.
played Metal Gear Solid.
Oh,
I've never played Box Simulator.
never mind then. I think Box Simulator is a different game, and I think it actually exists.
I think it does too. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think it is.
so what are you feared of, Cluze?
Well, I'm afeared of other people, but we kind of knew that already.
I mean,
right?
are you afraid of Americans?
I'm afraid of
yeah.
Americans.
Yeah, I totally am.
Should be.
They're pretty awful overall. There are individuals that are great, but like as a whole, not great. So
Agent K agrees.
several years ago, back in the before times, long ago, when I was a younger man, one of the things that the wife and I enjoy doing for vacations is taking cruises, right? That's a thing we used to do in the days. In fact, the very last thing I did before the pandemic happened
Yep.
was a cruise.
Yeah.
It was the Joko cruise. So Jonathan Coulton, singer-songwriter from New York, they take over an entire ship. It's like a convention, but it's on an entire ship, right, for a week.
Cluze's love of cruises was such that he got on a cruise back in the time period of, wow, I wonder if we're ever letting those people off that boat.
Hey, now look. Things didn't really get bad until we got back. Okay, it was dicey. It was like, should we go on this cruise? Should we not go on? There wasn't really an obvious answer at the time.
Yeah.
We went.
I appreciate the time frame of it. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely time. So we went on that cruise. Like, while on that cruise, we had booked for the next year, right? By the time that cruise had happened, because they'd opened up booking before 2020 happened, before Joko 2020 happened, they started booking for 2021, and it coincided with my spring break at my university. So I was going to have that week anyway. So we're like, great, let's book this. So we booked it for 2021. That, of course, did not happen because
It's 2021.
that did not happen.
Yeah.
So that was postponed to 2022. That happens in early March of this year. That cruise is booked. I don't know if this is a good idea. Right? I'm really afraid.
I know. It is
I
not.
don't think it's a good idea.
On the one hand, the group of people who are going on this cruise are not the kind who would get a zombie bite and then not tell anyone. They're the kind who would actually tell you, right? They're the ones who will actually follow the rules, who will actually do things right, who will try and maintain social distancing, who will try and wear their masks all the time, who will be vaccinated, right? Like, if you had to pick a group of people to be in a pandemic with, these are the people to do it with. What I'm worried about is not really the ship itself, because you have to be tested within 24 hours of going on the ship, and they're going to test you again when you get on the ship. Okay, so I'm not really worried. Once you're on the ship, I'm not super worried about that. I'm worried about getting there, because I have to get from Michigan to Florida, and the most efficient way to do that is on an aircraft. But that means you're on an aircraft, and it also means that you have to go through an airport, not just one, but two. Get the one where you go on and then the one where you get off. And I'm terrified of the whole goddamn thing.
And that's only if you have a direct flight.
We do have a direct flight. Thank goodness.
That helps.
But still, I've lost all faith in my fellow human beings.
Oh yeah.
All of it.
I thought I lost it all
I had a
in
modicum.
2016.
Exactly.
It turns out, no, I had a significant, deep, hidden well of faith in humanity that 2020 just fucked.
I had a reservoir of faith, and now it is gone. I think. I mean, I don't know. We're early in 2022. Who knows?
That's fine. My brain shifted into the old mode where we didn't swear when we did this, and then you swore, and now I remember I can.
Yeah, that's bringing the swear subroutine back online. Nice.
Oh,
It's
crap.
booting up, and I'm like, my brain is currently hanging on. Do we or do we not count
Wait,
clusterfuck?
guys, guys, can I borrow a penny? I said a bad word.
Oh no, there's a shortage.
Yeah, no, sorry, we're all out.
Oh,
You're gonna have to get 4 more swears and use a nickel, sir.
I do have
But yeah,
nickels.
I am absolutely positively terrified about the whole thing, and I just don't know what to
Okay,
do.
so
Excuse
I
me.
will caveat this with saying that last year in September, I went to Dragon Con.
Sure.
Dragon Con had incredibly strict provisions in place.
Yeah.
That was how they convinced me to go.
Sure.
So, like, you could only get in if you were vaccinated. They cut attendance down to like a half cap. They were shutting down every room multiple times a day for multiple cleanings.
Which is pointless, by the way.
Yeah, but they were doing it.
Sure.
Yeah, they closed off the area to the public. Even the outdoor parade did not allow new people in. Like, everyone there has been through the screening process to get through.
Huh.
They did all of these things to make it as safe as it could be. Like, masks were mandatory. It was enforced. With a few exceptions, like, unfortunately, like, when you go to a convention, people take off their mask when they take a stupid picture and then they immediately put it back on. So, like, great, you cracked open the seal. And now there's a picture of it on the internet, so it looks like no one's wearing masks. When in reality, 99% of the time there, everyone around you is wearing a mask. But that's what you get. So anyway, went through all of that stuff. I felt okay at Dragon Con because of all of that stuff. Psychologically, I was okay with it. It was weird being at Dragon Con when it's not as many people. But I was there. I had an okay time. I felt fine. Coming home was terrifying because as soon as I got back from this bubble and was around like normal people, like I felt way more in danger at Target than I did in Georgia.
Which is not normal.
It's not how that's supposed to work. But that said, this was before Omicron.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think Omicron is like the tipping point for me on this one because I stayed home on New Year's and holy crap was my Facebook feed full of people who were sick on the Monday after New Year's.
Yeah.
And not all of them had COVID, but you know, some did.
Now,
and they were vaccinated and boosted and everything.
there is a chance that Omicron is so contagious and burning through so fast that we're just going to have a giant spike and then an immediate drop off.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Might be. But my position on like bigger gathering type things right now is that like for January, February, just like straight up blackball, no.
Yeah, pretty much no.
For March, my default is no, and if conditions get better, yes. But that's a kind of hard thing to plan around. My biggest issue at the moment is that way back a year ago, when it was cheap, I booked a flight from where I live now to Japan again because it was last year around like I think it was June. And so like things were like looking better. Like
Sure.
Japan wasn't great. They were a mess going into the Olympics, but their rates were going way up for vaccination. As a country, they're like, "Okay, we're doing this now." And they just flipped because that's what Japan does. And so they were super strict about it. They were going through it was looking really positive, like maybe this would actually be an option. Pre-Omicron, all that. But part of the reason that Japan could do that is because they stopped letting people in. Like
Right.
people who lived in Japan who'd left to like go see family or something had to go through a really long process to get back in. Like if you even got back in, like they would meet you at the airport. And by they, I mean like the army, which they don't have. They don't have an army, but armed people would show up and meet you at the airport. They would escort you and everyone from your plane and the other planes that arrived at the same time to a hotel that the government has rented out indefinitely. They would leave you in there in a room where they bring you food for 3 days, testing you regularly throughout this process. If you pass the test, you know, like the don't have COVID test, then they would install an application on your phone. You don't have a say in this. And that application would give them your GPS coordinates for 2 weeks. and they would call it at random times to ensure you didn't leave your phone at home. And you did not leave where you went for 2 weeks after that. And that was the process. So, like, I spent the last few months pre-Omicron thinking, man, if they don't relax that, I definitely shouldn't go because I don't want to spend 2 weeks of my trip in quarantine. And then, as Omicron rolled out in December, the airline canceled my flight there. Didn't cancel my return flight. They canceled my flight there because Japan stopped letting people in, but they were happy to let people out.
Right. So if you somehow get in, we will fly you home.
So the way that they cancel it is
somebody
they
get
cancel the
Cluze,
flight there.
Squee a boat.
Yeah, they cancel the flight there. The flight back, they adjust such that you can come back, but it's no longer the direct flight it was before. You come back by way of a third stop in one of the few countries Japan is exporting people to. So it's like Japan, then this other Asian country in the opposite direction, then Canada, then the US. And all of these countries have their own rules for letting people in and out with, plague. And so, like, I'm obviously not going to Japan in March. Safety aside, policy-wise, It's just not happening. But I haven't been able to cancel the rest of my flight since they did this in December because they canceled everyone's flights. And there's no fixing it online. You have to get on the phone with someone. And the estimated wait time, when they'll even give you one and don't just hang up on you and say try again later, is 3 to 4 hours of wait. So at some point at 2 a.m, I'm calling Canada so that they can sort this out for me and waiting until 4 a.m. to do it. Because the middle of the night's the best time I'm going to get for this.
Sure.
Or you just hit call, put your phone down, and play Xenoblade for like 4 hours.
Oh, I mean, I do that, but they drop you.
Bitches.
They'll drop you, is the problem. It's not just that it's a long delay. They'll drop your connection if you're not engaged enough or something. It's ridiculous. So, like, I'm going to have to sort through that at some point in the near future. The reason I booked this flight originally was because last summer I needed something to look forward to, and I booked it on the condition that it was free to reschedule up to a year.
Sure.
So whenever I get through this whole loop, I'm going to bump this thing to March of next year.
Next year, yeah.
And hope that we're in a better place in a year. Like we hoped last year when we got the vaccine and it looked like people were going to take it.
We also hoped the year before that. And
correct. But like last year was like, hey, look, a vaccine. And like most of us are on the page that we should get this. Like we obviously weren't by the end of it, but that was the hope that maybe we'd do something about this. But the reason I'm bringing this whole diatribe back to you is what do you have to go through on top of safety concerns? Do you have to quarantine when you get back?
No.
Okay. Is everyone who works on this boat being held to the same standards as everyone who's getting on the boat?
Excellent question. Kind of. I mean, yes, sort of. They're definitely tested regularly. I'm pretty sure they're all vaccinated. But this is Omicron we're talking about, so breakthrough cases are totally a thing.
Yeah.
If you look at the cruise industry as a whole, yes, there have been a few ships that have had, some outbreaks, but by outbreaks, it's like 18 people tested positive.
Right.
Okay,
In the event that your
18
ship
out of
tests positive,
2,000
they're still
is
letting you
not
back,
so bad.
right?
Yes, at this point, as far as I know, yes, they will take you off. The tricky bit is you're probably not flying home.
Right.
But that's fine. I can drive from Florida. I've done it before.
I mean, being trapped in Florida does sound miserable. So
no. I'm not being trapped in Florida. I will get a car.
Yes.
And I will get the hell out of Florida.
It's the right choice.
Yeah.
It is always the right choice.
Yeah. So, and we do have we've got trip insurance for everything.
Sure.
We've got cancelable flights. We paid the extra for that, just because this whole thing could just fall apart at the drop of a hat.
I'm kind of in the weird spot at this point where like I don't want to spread anything to anyone. That's been my main concern from the get-go. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm afraid of getting something that will ruin my life and like diminish my lung capacity forever and all the other terrible things that could happen from it. But at the point where I'm at now, it's like, well, I'm double vaccinated and boosted. I don't want to go to the hospital when there's nowhere to go in the hospital, and I certainly don't want to take up beds because like it does happen. It's just significantly less common now. if you're properly vaccinated and boosted and take precautions. So I'm more comfortable with certain risks now, but now is defined as once Omicron chills out, and we don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
Because like I saw the thing the other day where it was estimated that like half of Europe is going to have Omicron by the end of January, and I'm like, only half? Like, are we being optimistic? Because I don't think that's the case. Like, I think more than half of America will have Omicron by the end of January. Like, SNL did a joke about the fact that, like, did you go see Spider-Man? You're probably going to have Omicron. And I'm like, I mean, that sounds about right. Spider-Man was great, by the way.
Spider-Man was great, by the way. I had to
just
wait
as
like
an
3 weeks
aside.
to go see it because Mom and I refused to go see it when there was any amount of people.
Yeah.
So when we finally got to go see it, there were, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4. There were like 7 other people in the big ass theater, and I was fine with that.
Yeah. But I do think that that's a thing to keep in mind. Like, obviously, going out is a risk. We've got guidance as of like it was always the guidance, but we've gotten reminded and rephrased guidance of like your cloth mask is not up to spec.
Yeah, it's garbage. I've been wearing
Um,
N95s
like,
for
I mean,
half
a cloth
year
mask
now.
is better than no mask, but it's not on the level of where you need to be if you're going into an environment that's not safe.
I've been wearing
Which has always
exclusively
been a thing.
KN95 masks, and I hope those are okay enough because it's all I got.
They're definitely way better. It's all about the fit. Does
Yeah.
it seal well for you?
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
it seals well for you, that's great.
Like, and to credit, like the cloth masks, part of their suffering is the fact that like we reuse them forever. So they, even if they had a nice seal at the very beginning, which they probably didn't, they're not going to keep having it if you've been using it for a while. The problem that we have with N95 and KN95s is that you need more than one. And a lot of people only have the one cloth mask that they've been using for a while, or just a few. Like they maybe cycle them out whenever they see something new and trendy. But like you don't get to just keep using that N95 once you get one. Like it's a thing. It's a recurring expense. You have to find them, you have to track them down, you have to use them, you have to seal them properly. There's a lot of work involved. And the last 2 years have shown us that people don't like that. So for right now, it's reasonable to assume that if you are out and about, you're probably being exposed to Omicron. So vaccine's still important, super important. Get the booster as soon as you can. Social distancing, like maybe don't lick random surfaces around you. Perhaps now is
Please
not
don't
the
do that
time to
anyway.
decide. Yeah, don't do it anyway. Like a lot of stuff you shouldn't do anyway. But also like everything that people have been telling you for safety didn't stop applying just because we got tired of it.
Exactly.
So, like, we know more about this, but, like, obviously, not medical advice. Don't listen to me for that. But, like, pay attention to people who know what they're talking about. They're probably not your uncle on Facebook. Like,
They're
there are actual
definitely
professionals who can give you that input.
not your uncle on Facebook.
Yeah.
So going back to things in March, mine is much less like severe than y'all's. But after all these years, and I'm talking a few years even before the world ended, the Proto Men stopped touring. They did it like a European tour, but that doesn't apply to me. And I got an email a couple weeks ago that said, "Hey, we're touring. They're gonna be at the Cat's Cradle in Carborough in March." And I opened that and I went, "Yes!" And then I went, "Fuck!" Because
Yeah.
I'm not going to that.
That is not a big
Yeah.
venue.
I was gonna
It
say,
is
have you
not
ever
a
been to the Cat's
well-ventilated
Cradle?
I
venue.
have to see the Proto Man.
It is tiny.
And I'm like, I've been
You
waiting
knew it was
for
tiny
this.
when you said Carborough.
I've been waiting for them to come back,
Oh,
go back on tour for years. Ever since I saw them the first time, I've seen them every time they came to the state. Every time.
I've seen you at several of those shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, for God's sake,
I am not
I
going to
briefly
indoor concert.
dated a girl because I saw her at 2 of those shows and we started talking. Like, but I'm not going. And I mentioned this in the Discord and someone's like, maybe things will be better in March. And I literally laughed and then I typed out laughter. Because, no, it's not.
I mean, to credit, if the wonderful world of Omicron Persei kicks in and kicks hard for a month, then there's a lot of terrible. March might feel better than January, but it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, that is a thing that like I would be more comfortable in outdoor environments. But like,
I don't even want to go to those.
yeah, because the thing is like the last time I went to an outdoor thing, I poked my head in the Renaissance Festival and then I left. Because like the Renaissance Festival, I discovered very quickly, is the one nerd place that the anti-vax people were allowed in.
Oh.
Because
historical accuracy?
I mean, the plague seems on point, but like they weren't requiring masks because they were outside. They weren't requiring vaccines or negative tests. You were pretty much just going into a farmer's market with a bunch of nerds. And nah.
That doesn't
Being
sound that
outside
much
doesn't
fun.
make it okay.
Yeah, like going to a farmer's market with a bunch of nerds doesn't sound that much fun when there's not a plague.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Renaissance fairs in the first place. It's not my thing. It's not my genre. I like air conditioning. I don't like the parking. I don't like most of the experience with Renaissance festivals. I was willing to go to one because I'm like, oh wow, Dragon Con was fun and as safe as I could hope for. Maybe if I go to an outside event, I can have something I enjoy. And then when I saw what I was getting, I was like, oh right, you're the people that like burn candles instead of taking medicine. Shit.
Yep.
And so I left. But yeah, suffice it to say, I would not go to an indoor concert in March, and that's a real bitch. Because like I haven't seen the Proto Men in forever either. It's a fun show. You know what I remember about Proto Men shows? Mosh pits, sweatiness, heat radiating from all the other nerds there.
Wait, there weren't any mosh pits at a Proto Men show.
I mean, I've seen one.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a proper mosh pit. It was a bunch of nerds trying to start one because they were drunk. But like, it was a sad mosh pit. Like it was a sad mosh pit, but like they're still jamming shoulder to shoulder and side by side and everything, and it's just like, no. I would puke in my mask if I was there, and then I would have puke mask. And you don't want puke mask.
No,
Nobody wants puke mask. But it would be properly sealed, so it would never escape. It would become a part of me.
That's worse.
Like, none of that's okay.